This episode is brought to you by Sutra Beauty.
Thank you so much, Alma Hernandez, for joining us. I know you are a very busy woman, but to me, like I follow you on Twitter. I love your tweets. I love your thoughts. And I want to take a second just to introduce you to my listener. So Alma Hernandez is an Arizona politician serving as a Democratic member of the Arizona House of Representatives for the 20th District. She was the youngest woman elected to the Arizona House of Representatives. Congratulations. Besides that, what would you like to tell the listeners about you? Where did you grow up and what got you interested in becoming a politician?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona. I'm from Arizona. I'm one of three children. All of my other two siblings are also in politics, so we're a very political family. My mother's from Mexico and my father's actually from California. We just, growing up, we were just told that we should do, first of all, what makes us happy, but also to do things that would help other people. I initially wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go to medical school. I did all of my classes. I actually had applied for a post-bac program. I even went on medical missions with my sister to Ghana and Panama. So medical school was always the original plan. And then I realized that I could really do much more to help people when it comes to policy. So that's why I went into public health instead. And yeah, it's been interesting. My life journey has been what has led me on the path of being a politician and being in politics. I do love the work that I do. It's not easy. It's definitely very difficult. But I got elected 5 years ago. So I've been serving for 5 years now. And really what stemmed like my political involvement really started with my pro-Israel activism. So I started when I was in high school. Yeah, I started when I was in high school. A lot of people don't know that. I think people assume that I just got started years ago or when I started politics, but I'm like, no, I've been doing this literally since I was in high school. I was introduced to APAC when I was a high school student, and I just ran with that ever since. So I have been very open and vocal about my work and advocacy around the pro-Israel spaces as well as like the Democratic spaces because I am a Democrat. So yeah, it's been quite the journey, I will say.
Wow, that's amazing. So are you Jewish? I'm not, I'm a little bit confused. I see you tweet sometimes Shabbat Shalom, and I don't know.
Yeah, I am. My mom's side of the family, they were Mexican Jews, and my dad's not Jewish. So our family is very interesting because we do everything together as a family and we all support each other. So yes, I am. I did decide after last year, because politics can get very toxic, that I would not get involved or do much during Shabbat. So I no longer you won't see me like posting on social media during Shabbat anymore, just because I realized I needed a separation of my life and work and politics.
So. That is crazy because this is your identity. This is part of who you are. And it's really sad that you cannot, you get attacked for just saying like I'm Muslim or I'm Christian or I'm Jewish. Like,
you understand because you also do a lot of this work and you really have put yourself out there. And I think, we appreciate allies like you who can help us. And what I always tell people, really, truly, it means more when it comes from the outer Jewish community, in a sense. Like, I think that's more impactful and more powerful when it's non-Jews who are advocating for us, because obviously we're going to do what we can to advocate for ourselves, but it's always more important, especially in the political world, to have allies and people who will stand with us.
Yeah.
Regardless of the backlash that they get, regardless of what they're told, but they're standing with us because they actually care and they understand the struggle. So I appreciate the work that you do as well, because it's not easy. It's definitely a struggle. So
I might join you soon. I'm just saying.
we will take you.
No, you know what? To me, it's really interesting. But I wanted to ask you when you were mentioning, you stopped mentioning that you are Jewish on your social media and all of that. Where does the hate mostly come from? Like when you post something about Shabbat, or like where does it come from usually? Do you know?
Honestly, I have a lot of trolls, as I'm sure you do as well. It's a lot of people that don't agree with my politics. I do consider I have very progressive values, and I think that's just the way that I was brought up. And really, truly, like my sense of wanting to help others and do things to help those that are in need are really progressive values, right? And I always tell people, like, I feel that I'm I'm a Zionist because I am a progressive. Like, everything about Israel, and when we talk about things of that nature, like, they are very progressive causes and very progressive issues. So for me, it's been difficult because every time I've posted stuff or I post something that's controversial, I get hate from both sides. I do like share a lot on social media, as I'm sure you follow me, and I always have something to say, and I'm very unapologetic about it, but I do get hate from both sides. And there's this, in the last 2 weeks, I've seen a lot of rhetoric online, and I do want to address it, of people, I've read articles and I've been seeing people that are like social media, really rising stars that I would consider in the Jewish community and in the non-Jewish community, posting about how Democrats need to leave the Democratic Party, or Jews that are Dems need to leave the party.
Oh my God, I saw that. I hated that.
And I'm so frustrated.
Yeah. I was frustrated as well, because listen, like, I want to hear your perspective about it, of course. But for me, like, the minute I saw a couple of people were posting and saying why it's time to leave the Democratic Party if you're Jewish or something like that. And I just thought, no, like, if there's a problem, you need to go and fix the problem. You need to be involved and fix it. Why are you gonna run away, from the
Yes. Honestly,
your perspective.
Yeah. So I've been very frustrated to engage when I know, like, my job is not to convince, like, I'm not trying to convince people that they're wrong. Like, that's just not who I am. Like, I believe everyone has the right to, like, express themselves, say what they want. Obviously, if they're respectful, it's always best, but I'm not going to police people on what they should feel or say. However, I will respond as someone who is a part of that camp of people, that we can't continue that rhetoric and that notion of, like, only the hate's only coming from the Democratic side. It is not. Like, I've been serving in office now for 5 years, and I will tell you,
it comes from both sides.
It comes from both sides. And for us to just say that it's one side is really disingenuous. And I really have a hard time just pretending it didn't happen. So I have been very frustrated in the last week, and in the last, I would say last 2 weeks. I don't know what it stemmed from or what's going on, but I've just been reading a lot from people that I follow and I really love and respect. And I've had, conversations with them offline too, where I'm like, hey, like, this isn't helpful, because let me explain to you why. I've also seen a lot of stuff like the Dems need to leave the Democratic Party because of their stances on Israel. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. I chair the bipartisan caucus at the legislature. So I literally work with everyone. I don't care about parties. That's never been me. Like, again, I am a Democrat. I will never compromise my values. And that includes my values as a Jewish person. And that includes my values as a Zionist. Like, I will never compromise my values to make anyone else feel like better about themselves. Like, that's just not who I am. Yeah. But at the same time, it's really important for me to, like, call out the fact that when people say things like the Dems, should leave, they're only Jews in name only because they're not leaving the Democratic Party. Like, that's just crazy to me, because I have been in spaces many times, as I'm sure you have as well, where you're not welcomed. And that does not mean you leave.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean you get up and go. To, like, at the end of the day, you're giving them what they want and they're going to win. So why am I just going to pack up and go when... And what I tell people all the time, that a lot of people talk about the squad, as I'm sure, and I cannot stand them.
I was going to bring them up. I was going to tell you that, the number one why people right now, like, they're gunning for the Democratic Party, because you've got some voices that
are very loud,
and no one is shushing them, or no one's
saying, hey. Well, the craziness is, for me, it's and that's what I keep telling a lot of my friends and people that I know. I'm like, look, the squad is such a small minority of the party. They are loud, and that's why they get the media attention, and they're so easy to, like, follow when it comes to social media. However, even with the vote on the Iron Dome funding, like, that did not represent the Democrat. Like, you can see in the votes, almost the majority of the Democrats voted for it. Like so the notion of like only Dems hate Israel, only Dems hate Jews, like that's insane. Like that is not the case because I currently work with people that are hateful that are not Democrats.
No, you've got voices in the Republican Party as well, like Marjorie.
Taylor Greene, yeah.
Yeah,
You
like
have a congressman from Arizona who is absolutely bonkers and like he has made so many comments about Jews and so many he's the dentist. What is his name? Congressman not Schweiker. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He's best friends with Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's why it's so frustrating because I'm like, you don't ever hear his name, but he's terrible. Like he's made really terrible comments. He's made so many really ridiculous statements. And I'm like, why isn't anyone talking about that? Like he's literally in the state of Arizona. So it is frustrating. So I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry to go off topic, but I'm like, it's so difficult because the work that I do, especially as a Democrat, I refuse to leave spaces where I know that even if I'm not completely welcomed by everyone, I still need to do that work. And just because someone says like, you know, you're not welcomed here doesn't mean that I get up and go because you're giving them the win and you're giving them what they want. And again, it goes back to if we're not speaking up for ourselves, like we need more people like you that are going to speak up for us, but you just can't get up and go. Like if there's a problem, you don't run away from it.
No, and at least to be honest with you, I am a little bit upset that I feel like the president doesn't really condemn the squad or doesn't really stop them when they say something that's bonkers, you know, and that's kind of disappointing. But also, Trump did it as well, you know, with the what's her face? We were talking about her, Marjorie Taylor.
Yeah,
you know, and so like, you know, I think that's why like maybe people are a little bit scared because like they're not really condemn that much, you know. And okay, I get it, like, you know, sometimes like with Republicans, like, you know, it's all about like we got to stick together, you know. But I always like, listen, before all of this, like I used to be like very liberal, like I literally, and I was very progressive, and then I'll be honest with you, I changed my whole mind about politics. The more I delved into it, the more I realized sorry to say that, there's corruption like everywhere, and I would rather to stay out of it and be like a humanitarian, be an activist, and try to fix, you know, the issues where I see them. But I've always expected like more from the left than from Republicans. You know, I've always expected that they would call out corruption if they see it, but with the squad, I don't see that's happening. And I think this is why a lot of people like me and others are frustrated.
I know that the president obviously is not picking, like going after every time. If we went after them every time they open their mouth, like we'd be on the news every single day, right? Like they say things that are extremely inappropriate. I'm constantly, you know, speaking up about it because I'm like, whoa, that does not represent who we are as a party. So yeah, the president obviously does not, it's the same thing in leadership here at the legislature. Like leadership always says, like, we're not going to babysit people. Like we are not going to speak on behalf of others. Like we're just going to let you all be and do your thing. And hopefully everyone's respectful. That doesn't always happen. But I will say even under Nancy Pelosi, like she did come out and say like, that is not okay. And I do appreciate that leadership on her end before she obviously left the leadership position. But you know, for me, it's just difficult because I'm like, look, I know that they removed, what is her name? Sorry, one of the squad members. They removed.
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, Ilhan Omar. They removed her from the committee and everything. And I'm like, that's great. Like, I agree with that. But also, why aren't you removing Marjorie Taylor Greene? Why aren't you removing the congressman from Arizona who's literally bashed Jews, or the congressman, is it from Kentucky, the one Republican that voted with the squad on defunding the Iron Dome? Like, why is it okay? So for me, I have an issue with calling out just one group.
No, but I'll tell you why. You know why I think it was mostly her? Because, you know, other people, like you said, everyone says something really fucked up, and that's normal. We've seen it. But I think with Ilhan Omar is because she went to Pakistan to meet with Imran Khan, the prime minister, and she went to meet with Erdogan, like every horrible dictator that's an enemy of the United States. She takes their sides. And I think maybe they felt a bit of fear, like maybe there could be treason in there, like you never know what happens behind closed door. Like when I saw that, I'm like, are you kidding me? She went to meet with the guy who supported Taliban openly, and I remember the captions of her photos, like, finally, I'm so happy to finally meet you. I've been waiting for this day. And I'm like, oh my God, he's a horrible person. Like, he's an Islamist, known Islamist,
I mean, I completely get that. I think what I have a big issue with is it's not just so much about, like, for me, obviously Israel is very important, but it's also like when people are inciting hate within the Jewish community, like that is highly problematic to me too. Yes, like again, she's so far off. Like I will never agree with her. Like I will never support her. That is why I'm a part of DMFI, which is the Democratic Majority for Israel. We literally primary Democrats who are like anti-Israel and are anti-Semitic. Like that is what we do as a group. Like we literally go after Dems in primaries who we know don't represent our party and who don't represent us. So I do that part, but I do have a problem with leadership on the Republican side not taking full responsibility as well for their own members.
Yeah, of course.
So like for me, I have a big problem with, like, yes, I'm happy she was taken off. I think that's great, like awesome. But also, like, why aren't we holding the other people accountable? And I get the whole like having to take care of your own, right? Like taking care, and I get it because I'm in politics too. But I think there needs to be some level of like accountability.
Yeah.
And as someone who works in a very bipartisan way, like I literally work with everyone here, I do have an issue with only calling out one side. And I've noticed over time, more and more, we see more people just blame the Democrats. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, there's plenty of blame to go around, but at the end of the day, we need to hold people accountable for their actions. And that means everyone. And I am very fair when it comes to holding people accountable, whether it's been from my own party or the other side. Like I always stand up because I'm like, this is not right. Like, this is not right at all. So yeah, it's been difficult in the last 2 weeks because again, I always tell people, I'm like, look, I'm in politics. Like I'm in a situation where I get attacked by my own party. I get attacked by people from the other side because they don't agree with me. I get attacked by people in my party because I'm not left enough for them. Like at the end of the day, it's difficult, So
Wow. No, you know what? I did notice like there was a lot of hate coming from the Republicans after Kanye West.
Oh,
did you notice that? Yeah. Like the shift, like it wasn't like this before.
Yeah.
Especially ever since Kanye West and Candace Owens, both of them, they started talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally now the level of anti-Semitism and like in Jew hate that comes from them and like hate for Israel as well, and now they're using the word Zionist to attack you. And that's something I've never seen before until now. Like, I've seen it like from only like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, but not from like everyday people.
Yeah,
but
it's really scary. So my license plate literally says Zionist. Like the license plate says Zionist on it. And my mom always gets really scared when I leave the house. She's always worried about me. And I'm like, I'm fine. It's okay. But at the end of the day, the term Zionist has really been co-opted and used like it's looked and seen by certain people as a very negative thing, right? Like it is not welcomed in a lot of spaces where I'm like, I'm a Zionist, like, and it should have never been that way, right? Like literally being a Zionist means like supporting the idea of having a Jewish state. Like that's literally what it means. To me, that means like you want to ensure that Jews are not dead and that Jews have somewhere to go. And that's what Zionism is to me. And it's really difficult when I'm being treated as like a terrible person because I'm like, I'm a Zionist, right? So it is so hard. And yeah, it's not easy. And especially nowadays, politics has become so nasty. And I always tell my parents, because my brother served in office for 6 years, I'm now 5. My sister just got elected actually for our brother's seat. And yeah, we're all in politics together, but we always, it's kind of disheartening sometimes where I'm like, I am like busting my butt out there trying to work with everyone, trying to find compromise. I literally credit my ability to work with the other side for my pro-Israel activism, because when you go talk to members of Congress, when you go talk to your elected officials about, pro-Israel issues, you're not there talking on behalf as a Democrat. You're there talking on behalf of people, like humans. We're talking about humans here, right? So that has never been political to me. So it's really frustrating to go into now the political setting and having to balance, figure out how to do that, because I was taught that when you go and talk about Israel or when you go talk about Jewish issues, you're talking about people and humans. You don't talk about a party. So yeah, it's been a struggle for sure, especially this past year has been rough. Election cycles coming right around the corner. And I will tell you that you'll start noticing in the next few months, people on both sides will start acting a little crazy, because that happens every election cycle, right? Like everyone wants to be the best of their party. And you see this going around, even the legislature, you see it around all over the country, where elections are coming and you have to prove to your party, your loyalty and your ability to be seen as the Democrat or the Republican. And it's scary to me. It is as something,
that's my problem with being a politician. That's my problem, because you have to, sometimes you may disagree with your own party about things, but if you want to be a politician, you have to agree with everything. If you
sometimes
not always. They will question, you, like, you really a Democrat, or are you infiltrating our party,
And I will say, as someone who does break away from my party every now and then, I always tell people, again, I will never compromise my values. And if I feel something's right and it's the right thing to do, I will support it regardless of whether it says it's a Democrat that's running the bill or a Republican. I have been successful in the work that I do because I think people in my district, I represent one of the most liberal districts in Arizona. And I'm the chair of the bipartisan caucus. And I always say, I will not change who I am. And I will not change what I do as an elected official to please people so that they can vote for me. People have voted for me for the last few elections because they believe in me and they know that I'm going to do the right thing. I have never lied and I have never wavered. And that's why I published a video on my Instagram and on Twitter where I'm calling out, the difficulty of what's going on right now within the legislature. No one expected me to do that because, again, I don't speak when I don't need to. I only speak when it's important. I try to choose my battles, but there comes a time and a place where I'm like, look, I always work with people. I'm trying to do my best. People know what they're getting when they're voting for me. I have never lied to my constituents, and
for a while now, right?
Yeah, for 5 years now. And I always have a primary election because the party sometimes thinks I'm not liberal enough, which that's their prerogative, right? So if they're going to run people against me, okay. At the end of the day, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. People who've known me and have voted for me know what they're getting. And I always tell people, people tell me all the time, oh, if you vote that way, you're going to upset people and you're going to lose your election. Okay, if I lose my election, it is what it is. I am doing what I feel is right. I can go to sleep every night knowing that the way I voted, that I can defend why I voted that way. And a lot of people can't do that. And there are a lot of people in politics who don't have a backbone and who really have no integrity because they tell you they're going to do something and they don't do it. There have been times, Sarah, there have been times where I am the only Democrat on the board with the Republicans because I said I was going to do that. And I don't care who calls me, who threatens me. I'm like, I've made up my mind and everyone knows that about me. So, I just wanted to mention that part because not all of us are like that. Like I said, I work extremely hard. Yeah, there are a few of us. But we do exist. And I try to tell people it's not easy, but at the end of the day, if I got into politics knowing it wasn't going to be easy. And I also got into politics knowing that I had to be my authentic self. And I cannot come in pretending to be someone I'm not because that's never going to work. It works for some people, but I will tell you that I would never feel fulfilled or comfortable walking away from something and being I should have never done that. I've never been put in that situation. I don't want to ever be in it. So, when it comes to pro-Israel advocacy or when it comes to whatever political issue, I always do what I feel is right. And again, if people want to vote for someone else in the election, that is their American right to be able to vote for someone else that's not me. That's okay.
Sorry, you were cutting out for a little bit, but no, we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to me, it's like it's so complicated, like with the politicians in the US, and I hate like the political scene is very nasty for me, and how they try to take each other out. And a lot of times it even has nothing to do with politics. Like they literally use like personal stories, digging in your past. Oh, like she did this, or like something like it has nothing to do with politics. And it's like so scary. But also, like another thing that I see, for example, if one politician becomes hated or something, like they target their families, and that is so scary, and or they harass them like on the street, like when they're walking and all of that. It's a very difficult life. I don't know how you do it. Like when you're in DC, do people bother you, or are you like known as the nice girl that you don't see controversy like that?
I mean, when I'm home and I'm in my district, like I literally will talk. People know that if they approach me, I will talk to anyone. I do not care. Obviously, I've had situations that are very uncomfortable where I've had people go up to me and like shouting and like blaming me for things that I never did. So yeah, there's a lot of that too. But again, for me, it's a difficult situation and it puts me in a very difficult spot because my entire family is in politics. So we always say in politics, like family should be off limits, right?
Yeah.
Like I have never personally attacked anyone's family members. I don't care. It is not my job to go after people's family.
That the person
is wrong.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. It should be, that's like 101 political, like you do not do that, right? But when it comes to being in politics and your entire family being in politics, you're like, that's hands off, right? Like we're all public figures. I can't expect that people are going to respect the same, like, oh, do not go after the family when all my family's in politics, right? So it adds a layer of like difficulties for me as an individual, because yeah, it's difficult. When my sister was collecting signatures and all of that to get on the ballot last election, people literally told her they refused to sign her petition because one, she was my sister, and two, it had to do with Israel and our stance on Israel, and that we hated Palestinians, and like this was like bizarre because again, this is her knocking on doors of people who are good voters. And she's like, hey, I'm running, please sign my petition to help me get on the ballot. And they're like, no, because you're essentially like, you're a Jew and you support Zionists. Like that's not okay. The Zionism movement, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't realize how much it affects in personal life too, because what I do and what I say also reflects on my siblings, right? Yeah. So if I'm out there speaking up and being loud, and a lot of times it could have a negative impact on others, but thankfully as a family we all stick together and we do everything together. And my sister is involved in her own ways when it comes to Israel and all in the Jewish community, but it is difficult.
I remember I saw something a while ago that you posted. I can't remember, was it a synagogue in Arizona that people were attacking? Yeah. Like you literally have like your Jewish.
One of them was mine. Yeah. One of the synagogues was mine. And truthfully, I do believe that it had to do with me being a member there, right? Like there is no way that our synagogue would be. So first of all, we belong to a very small Reform synagogue here in town. We have about 80 families. It's not a very large synagogue. Me and my sister are on the board. It's hidden in a neighborhood. Like you don't just see it from the street, right? Like you have to actually drive to this neighborhood to find our synagogue. So, the fact that our synagogues, when our front doors were shattered, literally during the height of everything that was going on in during the Sheikh Jarrah, or how do you say it?
Jarrah, yeah.
Yes. During that conflict, that's when that happened. And for me, I'm like, it's no coincidence. Like, I don't feel like that's a coincidence, right? Like, obviously someone's upset and targeted our synagogue. We got it fixed, but it was very scary because now we can't even we can't have a gathering more than 10 people without police. It's insane. Like, I always tell people, I don't know any other religion that if they want to get together to do something, they have to have like police presence there. Like, it's insane.
No, but this is why I always say these attacks on Israel, they're always anti-Semitic, always, like the bottom line, because you are literally attacking a synagogue in the US that has nothing to do with Israel. And it's just, Jewish Americans that are attending and you're attacking it. Why? That should help you a lot,
I always tell people, and I know it's not popular when I say this, but I'm like, if you're anti-Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And I know it's not a very popular thing to say, but I truly feel that that's the case. Like, if you don't believe that Jews belong in Israel and that Jews should exist, then you are clearly anti-Semitic, period. Like, there is no...
They do believe Jewish people should exist, but they should exist with no country and no power whatsoever. That's not Jew hate. That's not Jew hate. You've got Iraq, Saudi Arabia, it's like 100 times the size of Israel. You've got, like Indonesia, like you got the Muslim world, like we are billions of Muslims and there are billions, even more billions of Christians. But Jews should not be in charge of a land this big.
Yeah.
And that's not anti-Semitic. How can it be,
Yeah, it's always so interesting when I hear people's arguments about like, I don't hate Jews. I just don't.
It's bullshit. It's completely bullshit. They know it's bullshit. They brainwash the people here to believe it's not, and to believe it's the legitimate reason, but it's not. And we know it's I know it because I live in the Middle East and I grew up around the Jew hate and the Israel hate, so I know where it comes from. And it because you are Jewish and you experience it. And it's just sad, but I'm so glad that we have people like you that are literally relaying the message of the minority, and we need more minorities. I just wish we had secular Muslims, and that's it, secular good Muslims without any Islamist agenda. This is why I told you in the beginning, I think I might join you, because I don't know any like a Muslim that I could trust that really represent me and represent my people. Like we come here, we want to live in peace. Like I don't want to see people like Ilhan Omar attacking, people like Mazi Alinejad. She's like the leader of the women rights movement of Iran. Why are you attacking her? Why are you calling her Islamophobe? Like, are you watching what's happening in Iran, how they're murdering women, how they're raping women? It's not Islamophobia to criticize an Islamist regime, but this should tell you why she's an Islamist and she supports that. So I just like this really, it really angers me because I feel like we have no real representation, not in the media, not in the government, not anywhere, and people like me and like a few people who are like me, we don't really have that big of, of a voice. Like no one really knows our story.
We're not as sought out as the squad is, but
we don't have the funding, And it's funny because
but that's why we have to keep doing what we're doing. And that's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, we all have a platform. We may not have as many followers as, the squad does, but we literally cannot allow them to continue to be the only voice out there. Like, that's the problem, is that like they continue to be the loud ones and seen as like they represent their religion or they represent their party, which they don't. But because they are so loud and there aren't enough of us who are countering that, it makes it difficult. So yeah, I agree with you.
Arizona was the first city I landed in and in the US when I came from Iraq. I used to be with the US military, then I came here, and my girl at the time, she was living in Arizona in Tucson. I remember I was like so excited and hyped. Oh my God, I'm in the US, and I came from the airport, and it was actually November. So like you would think it would be cold, but it was not. It was very hot. And I remember like I came from the airport, and then she picked me up. We step outside and like the doors open and it's so hot. And I'm like, nah. She's like, what? I'm like, I did not leave Iraq to come to another Iraq. The heat was like unbearable. I literally left Tucson within a week.
Oh, wow. I love Tucson. So I live in Tucson. I love
Sorry,
Tucson.
What is like too hot.
It's okay. It does get hot though. But I split my time between Phoenix and Tucson, so I go up and down every day because
No, but
now
you
I'm in
know,
law school.
I do love the huge like cactuses that you have. They're so beautiful. I remember, there was like something that really was exotic to me. But, when I was in Iraq, it was so hot and desert and all of that. I felt like I wanted to go and see green. I wanted to go and see ocean and see, all that when I came to
You
Arizona.
ended up in California, right?
And then ended up in California. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you visited Tucson, but yeah, no, I love it. I love it here. I don't honestly, I want to continue my political work, so I don't see myself leaving Arizona anytime soon, just because, I've worked really hard to get where I
Sorry,
am now.
I don't mean to diss it. I'm just saying, as an Iraqi
Yeah,
who's
no.
heat, I did not want to go to another house.
You were good. No, I'm just sharing, I have plans for the future, and I definitely will continue to be in Arizona.
Hopefully, I'll visit you.
Yes, you are welcome to visit
Maybe,
anytime.
but invite me in a time when it's not.
So like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, like even in LA, to be honest with you, people always think that, oh, like, but you live in California, you must like the heat. I'm like, no, not really. Like, I do love LA because I feel it feels less lonely when you're an immigrant who comes here, and you feel you kind of belong because LA contains people from all over the world. So I like it because of that, because of the culture, it's open, all of that. But the weather, to be honest with you, I love when it's raining, like today, right now. That's my perfect weather.
Well,
But I wanted to mention one thing before, we end this, that I saw something you've done that was amazing. You brought something to schools. Can you tell us about it?
yes. So we have so there were two things. It took 3 years to finally get mandatory Holocaust education done in Arizona. That was a very difficult thing to do. It should have never been political, but it became very political due to politics, of course. But I'm just so happy that we got it done. We were the 18th state to do it. Now in public schools in Arizona, you're required to learn about the Holocaust twice before you graduate, which honestly, to me, it's great considering some people were getting no education around the Holocaust. So I'm very proud of that as well. And then we did mandatory. I worked with Chabad here in Arizona, and this past year, 2 years ago, we finally got done a moment of silence, a moment of reflection every day when school starts. Not a moment of prayer, just a moment for students to just relax for 60 seconds, which is really important. I heard from a lot of school teachers, a lot of people that worked in education who were like, during COVID, things got crazy with the students, right? Like there was so much anxiety, so much going on. And that was a one time where people could just relax for a minute. And I worked with the Jewish community to be able to do that. So I'm really proud of that too. So, mandatory Holocaust education was extremely critical. And at least I know, if people decide to vote me out this next election, at least I know that I will step away from politics knowing that I had an impact in that way. And I just, yeah.
No, and hopefully you will not, and hopefully you will stay. I can tell, like you have a very strong personality and you're not going anywhere.
I hope not. But again, that will be up to the voters, and I try to do my best every year to show them that I will continue representing them.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time of your busy schedule.
Yes, thank you for doing this.
Lovely talking to you, and hopefully, we'll bring you in the future again to discuss, whatever issues that we have. But I just wanted, my listeners to know about you and to find you and support you because, any person that I bring on my show, I don't just bring any person. Like I only bring people that I admire, and you're one of them, Alma. So they can find you, Alma Hernandez. You're on Instagram, you're on Twitter, and they can learn so much from you. Thank you so much for everything that you are doing.
Thank you. And thank you for everything that you do as well.
Thank you.